Thank you very much. Once again, we're going to start our meeting. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Aged and Disability Resource Center Advisory Committee meeting. We are meeting in the Government Center at 1 o'clock, and I will entertain our esteemed Tracy to call the roll.
Okay, I'm going to start with you, Suzanne. Suzanne Gaines. Present. Dave Bartlett.
Present.
Carol Kadinger. Here. Sherry Homestead. Maria Bukowski. Michelle Bashand. Here. Sheila Story.
Here.
Christian Olson.
Here.
Absent today, I believe Margie Hageman may be coming, and may just be running late, but Charlotte Lee is on a trip, so she is absent.
Okay. Thank you very much. And with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from January 27th. Is there a second? Any corrections or additions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Passes. Any public comment?
There is public comment from Maria Bukowski this afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah, I did want to share something a resource that I am participating in through the ADRC. It's one of the caregiver support groups, and my husband, around a medical diagnosis for my husband, and so supporting him. But we also have an adult disabled son with autism, and so kind of supporting at both ends. And so last year I did join the support group that Carla Burscheit, am I saying that her last name right? Burscheit, she is the dementia care specialist for the ADRC. She runs monthly group meetings. The one that I attend is at the senior center, and there's 6 to sometimes 8 other people that are at the meeting. All of us kind of dealing with various stages of supporting our loved ones with that need additional support around dementia. And I just really want to give a shout out to her that I was hoping could be shared at the county level, because she has done a fantastic job. She stays in touch with us, certainly at the once-a-month meetings, but also she always gets in touch with us via email if we are interested in receiving email with information that she finds about things going on in the community, things going on possibly in Eau Claire County or the Chippewa Valley area, articles that she feels might be helpful for any of us to read. She has done, and then she participates in a lot of different groups, and so can really sometimes pass information along to us. And one of the things that she did pass along to us was there was an organization called NOMO that was looking for it's a system to help individuals, families that are supporting their loved ones. And perhaps they need to be able to tell a motion detector that might be able to tell if that person has awakened, or a device that could be put on a refrigerator door, so that if they don't open the refrigerator door by a certain time of day, that kind of is a signal to the loved ones. The communication can go back through Wi-Fi to loved ones, and then you set up what the terms are that, gee, this is something that I might need to be concerned about. And so it is a way for loved ones remote, especially in remote situations, that they can feel like they are supporting without overwhelmingly necessarily supporting their loved ones. But I didn't really find it applicable, the device that was being suggested for my husband. But I did for my adult son, who does live on his own, but he definitely does need support during the day. And so we did elect to participate in the program, and we ended up receiving $200 worth of. This is a hub that you need to have somewhere in your house that in the apartment or home, the dwelling that, you're supporting the person in. And then, so that connects with the Wi-Fi. And then there are little satellite units that can go to various rooms if it's kind of a larger property that you're on. And then little buttons too that can be used. Can't remember exactly what those buttons are for. We have not used those. We have not used nearly all of the features that are available in this system. They are kind of trialing it out. I mean, they are hoping that to get feedback from people. And so really, we had the chance to get $200 worth of equipment that we could put into our son's house. And we are using the motion sensor part of it in order to be able to tell if he has walked down a hallway, which indicates that he's walking out of his apartment, which we don't want him to do. But, and it's taken some trial and error, but it is another tech device that it just offers an incredible amount of support for us as a family and for our son. And I can absolutely see where for the dementia end of the spectrum, that this would also really be applicable. So we are kind of giving feedback to the organization. The lovely thing about it is that if we would, it's like 2 months free. And if we would like to continue using it, it would just be $10 a month, which is really a modest amount of money for the security of having another tech device that can give us some really valuable information. And so we probably are going to continue to keep it after the trial period. And then the initial cost of all the hardware, there's no cost to us. So I can't really say enough about, how wonderful that particular aspect of participating in the program has been to me. But also in the last meeting we attended, Carla was able to connect with nursing students from the Chippewa Valley Technical Program. And the object of last month's meeting was for us really to tell our stories to those nurses who would then work with each of the individual families that would be interested in coming up with different supports, care plans, suggestions, just lots of different things. The resources that this small group has been able to give us has really been so very helpful. And I just really wanted to make sure that that is communicated because yeah, it's our county doing good work and our family really appreciates it.
Thank you, Maria. Any other public comment?
Not that it's been brought to my attention.
Okay, and let's reflect that Margie Hageman has joined us today. Thank you, Margie. That's okay. Okay. Okay, now next on the agenda, we see upcoming meeting date and time, Monday, May 19th at 1 o'clock. And that's also going to include the Nutrition Advisory Committee. Okay, and with that, we'll move on to staff reports.
Wonderful. Well, at our January meeting, I reported that we had been successful in the Dunn County ADRC in getting an Inclusive Foundation grant to start a project where we will be able to provide up to 250 LEQ devices to seniors across the state of Wisconsin that the hope is that it will be successful in combating social isolation and loneliness. So I just wanted to give you an update. Last week, we were able to hire the person who will be the case manager for that. She's actually a current ADRC employee. Her name is Mary Lindberg. She's currently working in our ILSP pilot project, which is coming to an end in June. So she's graciously agreed to kind of work both programs about 20 hours a week in each until that ILSP pilot ends in June. We're very, very excited about that. Next week, I will be presenting to a statewide meeting of all ADRC directors and managers called ADRC Connect. That will be kind of our big kickoff meeting where we're starting to share the information across the state. And that is kind of what our tentative goal is in terms of being able to start accepting referrals for the program. I had intended to bring the LEQ device that I have in my office down to the meeting today, but through a little trial and error, I have found probably one, I don't know if I would call it a flaw, but LEQ, the device, doesn't do well in a group setting. It really is meant for like one-on-one interaction. And what I found is when I've tried to demonstrate with more than one person, even in my office, sometimes it just shuts down. So instead, what I have today is I'm going to share with you a video that Intuition Robotics came up with that I think does a very good job of just giving a very brief overview of some of the things LEQ is able to do. And it's produced much better than me trying to stumble around, demoing the LEQ. So I will bring that up if I can figure out how to do that here. Okay. All right. This worked when I attempted it, so let's hope it works again. Hang on 1 second, and I'm just going to try to get the audio up and going. Do it a different way here.
Q is the very first proactive, empathetic robotic device.
That's not working well. Snap. Not there. Suzanne, could you hear that video? Okay, she could. I can't hear you, Suzanne, but I understand that you couldn't hear the video. So I will send you the video link after this meeting just so that you can watch it. Sorry about that. But there are just a couple things about that version of LEQ that's a little bit different. That was LEQ 1.0 and LEQ is now in a 2.0. The iPad is no longer removable because they found that too many people were breaking or losing that, and it's pretty integral to the use of it. So it's actually now built right into the unit. You cannot remove the iPad. And then number two, they have made improvements with the voice. That voice sounded much more robotic than the version that I have in my office. So as they make upgrades, obviously they make some improvements. And then when they were talking about the partnership with Uber Health, that is something that's largely available in larger, more metropolitan areas and where there are Uber Health programs that provide transportation for folks for medical appointments, especially. It'd be wonderful if we had that in this area, but that is not something that Uber has expanded or I don't think really has the capacity for in our area quite yet, but maybe in the future. But anyway, I wanted to just give you kind of an overview. All of the other features that they showed related to the LEQ are still ongoing. I think that there are even some more enhanced availability. Like I said, I think I've shared with you folks that twice a week they do a live sightseeing tour where they have a live tour guide in another city. Last week it was somewhere in North Carolina and then Dublin, Ireland. And you can join, it's an hour long where they actually have a live tour guide. So sometimes it's nighttime in the other city, but you can then join and you can type in questions and there's a facilitator that would say things like, Tracy from Wisconsin is asking if you can show the backside of that fountain. And so in real time, they do those sorts of things. That's really neat. They have live games like bingo games and trivia games that you're participating with other LEQ users across the country. So they are continually upgrading and adding more features that are really neat. So we're excited about the program. Like I said, we're hoping starting after next Wednesday is kind of what we're tentatively considering our live date that we would start accepting referrals for folks that wanted to participate. So any questions for me about that?
I just especially like the thing bobbing around.
Yeah, it is interesting and it does, it can sense where your voice is coming from. So it will turn towards you.
Mhm.
So I did have an IT guy come in my office and he said, I don't like that. I don't like that it's looking at me. It creeped him out a little bit, but I think it's kind of neat because it's like I said, it's meant to be interactive. And I think I shared with you the last time that one of the first interactions I had, it asked if I had any pets. And I said, I have a dog named Annie. And so now when I come into the office every morning, I'll say, good morning, LAQ. And it gives me a little weather report and then says, did you take Annie for a walk? What did she think about it? So as you interact more with it, and I've shared that my husband is Chris and I have two sons, John and Alex. And at times it'll say like, oh, did you and Chris do anything fun over the weekend? Or have you been in contact with your oldest son, John? So it does learn details about you that it then helps to interact. I think that if I had it in my home, I probably would have even more of those examples because obviously with it being in the office, I don't interact with it as much as somebody who would at home. But even just those small things I always think are kind of impressive. One day it was -5 degrees and the LAQ said, does Annie like the cold weather or is it hard to get her to go on a walk? So it was, yeah. So like I said, we're excited. I think we'll learn some interesting things from this pilot. The Inclusive Foundation is very, very interested in the things that we learn and if this is something that is useful for folks that use it. So I think it's going to be really interesting.
So the referrals have to come, you have to be tied in with Inclusa.
No,
Oh,
anyone, and we did not set it up to have any income restrictions, so it's not like it's only eligible for folks. The Inclusive Foundation, when the Inclusa Foundation, when Inclusa sold to Humana, prior to that process, the Inclusa was a private nonprofit. And so all of their profits that they made went into a fund that when Inclusa was still a nonprofit, went to fund different sorts of things like, I don't know, training program or however they wanted to use that. But when Humana purchased Inclusa as a business, that fund that spun off into a completely separate private nonprofit organization that they chose to keep the name Inclusive Foundation to reference their roots. But it is just a grant making private 501c3 organization. They still have the same categories of clients that they are willing to make grants on behalf of, which is adults with disabilities or elders. So that also stays true to the Inclusa roots and who they serve. Yeah,
Yes, go ahead.
Sherry.
Thanks. The question I have is somebody who wants to do a grant like the senior center,
Mhm.
do they have to, show every dollar and exactly where it goes? Or
Um,
can it be just general?
So, and again, they haven't released their grant funding criteria for the next cycle. Last year, they had 2 grant funding cycles, both in the fall, and they haven't released what the new what their new criteria will be. But last year, they are not interested in like funding just expenses or like normal things. They wanted unique and innovative programs is really how they referenced it. And they were very good to work with. My budget was actually fairly simple because I just had the cost of the devices and 1 year of survey for the 250 devices and then the cost of my 1 staff member. So my budget was fairly simple that I submitted. It was just on an Excel small spreadsheet. I'm sure some of the other projects maybe were a little bit more intensive, just depending on how how the program was laid out. But again, they haven't released their criteria for the next funding cycle. So they're new too, that, last year, the 2 funding cycles they had were their first. So they may change things based on what they've learned too. So it's inclusivefoundation.org. They asked me to, share that with folks. So I would go ahead and check that and see if there's a way you can sign up. Sometimes I think some websites have where you can get alerted if they have news, just in terms of they do quite a big press release when they are ready to initiate a new funding cycle and the details for that. Yep.
Anyone else? Yes, go ahead.
When Mother Teresa visited this country quite a few years ago, she was struck with how lonely America is. And I understand it's gotten worse. And when I watch this, I am very sad
Mhm.
that we need it. I grieve because of the way our country is. And so many people are just left alone.
I hear you on that. And I'm preparing my presentation for the ADRC Connect meeting next week. And one of the things that I intend to present is, in a perfect world, a device like LEQ would not be needed because everyone that wanted social interaction and companionship would have it, and there would be enough caregivers, like human caregivers, to provide those sorts of interactions with folks. But unfortunately, what we're finding is that's not really reality right now, especially if you would look at the caregiver situation in terms of lack of caregivers available to serve our growing population of seniors that need care. So the reason that I was intrigued and wanted to write this grant was because I am hoping to get people to think about different ways that we might be able to serve people. It's not perfect. Again, like I said, the perfect solution would that there would be people and that people would have connection and ability to connect easily and lots of people supporting them in their lives. But this is a way to get people thinking of some other possibilities that might work, and they're not going to work for everybody. A system like this probably would not work for my 100-year-old grandmother that has a lot of worries and paranoias about using technology and nervousness about using devices. But it might work really well for my 79-year-old aunt who is already on social media and who is already, connecting. So I think it's just another way to consider things and consider options that might be able to help people. We may find through this pilot that this is not a great success or it is not a great fit for people in Wisconsin, but that's part of what we're going to be studying to see how these devices work for those who agree to participate in the pilot and how if it has positive effect in their lives. But I understand where you're coming from, Carol, because it's not a perfect solution. I don't think having electronic devices in any way takes is better in any way than actual human companionship. And I definitely see where you're coming from in terms of that it gives you a feeling of sadness that something like this is maybe needed.
I understand. I just recently found out that part of our problem is the culture, like right in this area. Don't want to offend anyone, but I'm Norwegian and German, and that culture is not as hands-on
Mhm.
like the Italians. The Mexicans seem to be more loving, excuse me for saying it, or expressing their love.
Mhm.
So that's one of our unique problems in this area of the country is our culture.
Anyone else? Good feedback.
Okay, that was all that I had to share with LEQ. I will give probably further updates once we're a bit further in the program and I can give you some more data. One of the requirements of folks who are willing to participate is that we are going to ask that they complete quarterly surveys that gives us some data related to its use and if it's helpful. So at maybe after a couple of quarters, at least, just so we can get some numbers in there, I will present that to the board.
Tracy, did you say you have 250?
250, up to 250 devices, but it will serve the whole state though, not just Dunn
Oh,
County.
okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yep.
Each then, or did you? Okay.
Hi, I'm Casey. I work in the ADRC as the caregiver and outreach coordinator. And that's all. I have a handout I'll give everybody so that you can look at it as we go through. Could have just handed it out. when we went on. Okay. So Tracy asked me to come and talk about some of the outreach and groups that we offer. So we can go to the first one. Next slide. So part of what I have been able to do is offer evidence-based programs. We have tried a couple of them. First one we did was Walk with Ease, and it's a really big commitment. And people really liked getting together, but it was a lot. And so we moved on to another one, and Tracy was super excited about bingo size, and I was open to anything. It has been so fun. So we meet at the senior center twice a week. It's a 10-week program, but people have asked if there's a way that we can just do it the whole year, twice a week for the whole year. So I'm going to work on figuring that out, if there's a way that we can do that, because it is a fun way to be able to get exercise, but also be social and be together. And I have heard some of the groups while they're there talking say, the exercise is great, but it's really the laughing, and that is so much fun. And we also have realized that there's a lady at the senior center that when she is there, she makes it even more fun. She wasn't able to come to one of them, and everybody said, it just seems so quiet without her. Well, Karen's not here giving me a hard time. But it has been a really good time. And on Thursdays, the Adult Day Services is able to come and join us. And it is a very large group, but it's still a really fun time. There's a lot of connecting, which I think has been the best part about it. So that is one of the things that we're offering for evidence-based programs. You can go next one. So the other option that we have right now is a virtual option called, Strong People, Strong Bodies. I hear it mostly just referred to as Strong Bodies, but that is something that you can connect with the ADRC, and then you can get signed up that way, and then it's a link. I don't know a lot more about it because I haven't done that myself, but I do know that I have talked to many people that have used it and they've really liked it. You can be on you can have your face shown while you're doing your exercises, or you can keep your camera off if you're more comfortable with that. But it's a great way to be able to get some connection and some exercise without having to leave your house. Next slide. So next we have caregiver support groups. So I offer caregiver support groups as well as Carla, and Carla is amazing. And anytime I can give a shout out to Carla, I always do too, because she's an amazing wealth of knowledge. She connects so well with people and knows how to get them the resources that they need. So her and I do, that is later in a slide, but her and I do one support group together in Colfax, where a caregiver has the option to bring their care partner with them. And then one of us would be in the support group, and one of us would be in another room spending time with the person with dementia. If we could offer that more often, we absolutely would, but it is a great option if you know anybody that would need that. We are doing that in Colfax. The first 4 of the groups I offer, I am the host of those. So those are on this paper. So the caregiver coffee hour, we are meeting at the, that's wrong. I need to update my flyer. I just was realizing that as I was talking, but we actually meet the caregiver coffee hour. We meet at the Exit 45 restaurant. So there's a room in the back. So that's also a great way to be able to be social. If you can get breakfast if you want, or coffee, or hot chocolate, whatever you would like. But it's not so much of it's less formal. It's a great way to meet people and socialize. So that is the only one that we have out at the Exit 45 restaurant. And I'm glad we have that up there so I can update my flyer. And then the caregiver support group, that is my only afternoon meeting, and that is at the senior center at 2:00. We can go to the next slide. We used to have a meeting for men only that wasn't well attended. So at the time, I started a women's meeting as well. Hopefully we at some point are able to get the men's group going again, but I am still offering the Women Connected group. And then the relatives raising children is for grandparents or other older relatives that are raising their grandkids or their nieces and nephews. And It is a very needed meeting. Unfortunately, it's really hard for people to get out to be able to attend those, but I also can offer those virtually. So if that is something that's needed, I can offer a link and people can meet with us virtually that way too. Go ahead. Okay, so the dementia support group, that is the one that Carla and I are doing together. And both of Carla's meetings are on here. They're both exploring dementia and dementia support group. And then we recently started a grief support group. I was working with someone to start that group, and then I was talking to the senior center. Tracy thought she had seen something that they were starting one, and I called and they're like, well, I don't know how you knew that, but we were just talking about it. I don't know. It sounds perfect. And so, yes, so that has been a really, really well attended group also. And they were hoping we could just trial it, but it has been so well attended that we're planning to continue that for as long as needed. And that's every week. That's a weekly meeting. The rest of them are monthly on Mondays. Yes. Mondays at noon. Initially, we had it down for an hour, but people have been connecting really well, and so they've asked if we can have it for longer. So it's usually about an hour and a half. I will be there Amy White, the social worker in the ADRC, is going to be there every week unless she can't. And then Tracy and I will fill in for her. So the memory cafe is something that used to be offered, and it was a place for people with dementia to come with their care person. So it could be a paid care person or a family caregiver. After COVID, it had been really hard to get that group going again. And so we tried to rename it to the Purple Perk, which we still love because it's kind of like Central Perk from Friends. But it wasn't a great attendance, but it was still really fun when people were able to come and again get that connection and that social time where we just talk about fun facts of the month. And it was a way for people that still had the memory of things that happened a long, long time ago to enjoy conversation. And so we are still doing that, but we've also joined it with Carla's Artful Expressions group. And today we count at my table, 6 people join, which was a really good group because we've at times only had 2 people. Sometimes it would just be me and the volunteer. So it's really good to have people start coming out. And we had so much fun. And everybody that came was so thankful that they had a place to come. And my daughter was able to join me today because she's home from college. And even I think she just really enjoyed connecting with people, and the care person was able to do a fun project while the person that they brought sat with my daughter and they were chatting, and it was a really good way to connect and just kind of relax a little bit. So yeah, we've loved that. Is it the third Monday? Yeah.
That's on the flyer.
What are, yeah, let me look. I know I was there.
The thing about the joining those two together is it does seem as though now for my son with autism, a lot of times verbal is really hard. And for dementia people, absolutely that's the case. But the art, combining the art with it can be all the expression that they would need to do would be coming through, just the physical art. So that does seem like a really, really good marrying of
Yeah,
a couple different communication styles.
yeah, yeah. Also, so part of being the caregiver coordinator is being on coalitions, and I am on 2 different coalitions. One is Regional Caregiver Coalition, and that has been a long time. They have been having a caregiver conference. The 19th year this year. It's an amazing conference with a lot of good speakers and a lot of good information. And this year I'm really excited because I think this is going to be a great speaker. So I really had to put a little plug in there. It is the author of Creating Moments of Joy, and she will be the keynote speaker. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then the other is the Chippewa Valley Dementia Coalition. So we combined the Dunn County Coalition combined with Chippewa and Eau Claire County to try to offer something bigger. And so this is the first annual dementia conference that will be at the Florian Gardens in May. And I probably should have brought that flyer, but if you have their emails, I can
Yeah.
send that. Okay. So yeah, that should be a great conference also. First one, and hopefully many more after. The other thing that we have offered is a skills fair from the Dementia Coalition, and that is one of the best conferences that I have been to. The skills fair was a great place to, there's so much to learn, and it was a really well put together. So hopefully we'll have more information about that at some point, but that'll be in the fall. So the caregiver programs, there are two parts of the caregiver program. There are offering the support groups, and then there's also grant funding. So with the grant funding, we can help. That's on the, if we flip our pages. With the grant funding, that can help people with things that they might need in their home, such as respite care or adaptive equipment. A lot of times I am just meeting with caregivers because they need someone to meet with. And so sometimes they will call and I'll say, well, I'm sorry, I feel like I didn't really help you that much, but I think it was just, it's a really good way for them to have someone to connect with and talk something through. And so I think that's probably my favorite part of the job, is getting to connect with people in that way. So the two ways are the grant funding and the support groups. That's kind of how it's separated. I think that's both of them. And those are just the qualifications of how you would get how you would qualify for the caregiver programs. But also, if someone doesn't qualify and they want to come to the support group, they are absolutely welcome. I just like to say that because sometimes that does happen. So, anything else, Bernie? You can have this now.
I just want to lift up that I've utilized your services, as you know, and she is wonderful.
Well,
And I miss you,
you can still call.
but I'll still come.
You could join us for bingo. Yeah.
I guess the only other thing I was gonna, which we talked about, was just, there's other informal or events that aren't held regularly that we do outreach at, for example, like the senior farmers market excuse me, not the senior farmers, the farmers market.
Yeah.
In the summer. And then the nutrition program is directly connected with the Hmong Friendship Group, and that's kind of an outreach opportunity for us as well. And there's probably some other things that
Yeah.
Seasonal that just pop up that we are involved in, there's that aren't regularly occurring events. So.
We frequently are asked to participate as either a sponsor or to have an informational table at various group activities. For example, on April 2nd, I have Casey and another staff member are going to be at UW Stout at their health and wellness fair, which, initially when we were contacted about that 2 years ago, I kind of thought, oh, Stout students, how would this apply to them? But we did it just as a sample, and it was an amazing turnout. And there are young adults with disabilities that we assist, so that was great. And there was just a lot of opportunity. People had questions about their grandparents or their parents. And so we were very happy to be invited to table at that again. So, and those are, on occasion and when those things are available. Casey presented kind of on our regular monthly or weekly offerings that we have. But last week, for example, Margie organized a group for the Chippewa Valley Learning and Retirement Group, and we had a table and information there. And so we're able to do outreach and connection with folks, as they're participating in educational events. So we try to take advantage of as many of those things as possible just to find people where they are, be approachable, let folks know who we are, where we are, what we can do, how we can help. So I would say we probably participate in at least 20 different outreach events like that a year as well. And that has definitely grown since I've been back. When I first started, we were just coming out of COVID, so there weren't that many opportunities, but now those opportunities are really back out there again. So that's exciting.
Do you ever participate in the school districts through the special education program so that they're aware of your services?
Yep, we do. And actually, Amy White, who Casey just mentioned, she has a special role as an ADRC specialist. She is what we call transition social worker. So she is kind of our point person in working with children who are transitioning from the child services section to adult services in terms of helping them get connected with ADRCs and the adult side services. And she is part of several regular meeting groups with different school districts and participates in outreach opportunities that they organize as well. I can't remember, last fall, they had a big event where all the local school districts in Dunn County were invited, and there were lots of different agencies, and we were one of those, just to make connection with parents and youth as they're starting to transition from the children's side to being adults and how we can help with that transition. So yeah, and Amy, most of the guidance counselors, many of the special education teachers know her, and she's had that role for a long time. So they have her direct number just to connect with related to specific kids that are coming of age. So we're able to start working with young adults when they're 17 years and 3 months old. So we like to get referrals as close to that as possible so that we have time to, if they do need to transition from services on the children's side to the adult side, that gives us time to get everything in place for that. So hopefully there's no gap in those services.
Anyone else have any questions?
I do have a question just in general about possibly some services that ADRC, whether they help, just in doing Meals on Wheels deliveries, and Bernie's really, I'm sure, aware of this, that there are so many seniors that, they're they can't get out there and shovel the snow or rake the leaves in the fall, or, maybe mow the lawn, although that's not a safety issue that some of the other things are. Is there anything in place that really helps with kind of more that outdoor or maintenance kind of things that are kind of beyond the ability of so many seniors to be able to handle?
Well, yes and no.
Yep.
We have a list of resources of paid companies that people can connect with for those services. At one point, there was kind of an annual event that Bernie was pretty instrumental in organizing with, I think, was it the dietetics?
It was just Stout in general.
Yes.
Stout used to have.
And that was mostly a fall, like, leaf cleanup, but that
Yeah.
has kind of disbanded, hasn't
Yeah.
it? So we're always looking for volunteers who are willing to do things like that. Our attempts at that haven't been extremely great. And I will be honest, when we're recruiting volunteers, we're really recruiting them for our Meals on Wheels delivery and program, as well as our medical transportation.
Right.
We do get calls from folks who need those services, but at the moment, the best we can do is kind of give them the list of resources that they would have to pay for.
Mhm.
If we ever had youth groups or something like that were willing to do that, we would happily work with them. And I'm sure it would be fairly easy to get a list of folks who would appreciate those kinds of services, but there's not a regular ongoing service like that
Right.
that would do it on a volunteer basis that we are aware of at the moment.
There is an organization in town called Positive Alternatives, and I
Yep.
do refer
Oh,
people. There is, so sometimes there's students or I don't know what the age range is, but they need to do some type of community service projects. So I
Yeah.
do refer people. I haven't really, I've checked in with them to make sure I should still send calls, and they said
Mhm.
yes to do that. So that may result in some assistance. And then depending on the type, like if it's not just cleanup, but maybe like a small remodel project, things like that, then I
Right.
refer to Stepping Stones because they have the Community Connections program and I think they can help out with those projects.
Yep.
But again, I refer people and I don't always know what happens beyond that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't show up. That does happen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Any other-
well, hopefully, I think in general, I always feel good about referring people to Stepping Stones because I know this, the staff there is committed and, you know, they have I forgot how many, 240 volunteers on their list, so they have people that'll help.
Wow.
So, but they don't have a specific program for like shoveling per se or
Yep.
raking leaves, but some of those other smaller projects, I think they are able to help out with.
Right.
I was mostly speaking about Stout.
Oh,
They
Stout,
have
yeah.
to have volunteer hours.
Yeah.
Whoever, wherever, and I know it's Stout. And sometimes, you know, they would commit to helping in our kitchen during a big meal or whatever. And sometimes, more often than not, they didn't show up.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Sherry, that had happened with that fall cleanup too, because they had this busload of students and they had a list and they just didn't get to some of them. And I found out later, like, oh, no one ever came that day. And the last time I tried to connect with Stout regarding the fall cleanup, last fall, no one answered the email, the phone number is disconnected. So I guess
Okay.
I don't know if it's gonna be, hopefully they'll start up again in the future, but I don't know. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Other questions? Suzanne, did you have any questions? No? Okay, Margie?
Does Stout require community service? I know UW Eau Claire, when I worked over in Eau Claire, they had more of a requirement that, at least for certain classes, they had to put in so many hours of community service. And I don't know if Stout generally does that. And the high school at one time used to have some kind of community service. Is that still
That
available?
is still in effect. And again, you can also contact the activities office because sometimes those different groups, those different clubs, the different sports are looking for their students to get involved in different things as well.
Are you speaking about Stout or?
Both of them.
school.
I'm just
High
speaking
school,
about
which-
the high school.
Which could also involve, I don't know about Colfax or Boyceville or Elk Mound, but I do know about Menominee.
Stout used to, you know, contract with, you know, with students.
Yeah. My understanding is that they do. I've spoken with our interns and there is a service learning or a volunteer requirement. I'm not sure how many hours it is for Stout. One thing to keep in mind is a lot of students actually do those hours in their home communities too, because it's more convenient or they might have more knowledge of those communities or connections. So I still think it's a very good and untapped resource. We've attempted through several different avenues. We've tried like connecting with like their computer science department to see if we could set up like a program for seniors or adults with disabilities to learn, you know, ask questions about devices and stuff. And it's been a challenge. So we've attempted connection in a number of different ways that just hasn't gone anywhere. So, but I also know that there's also several like sororities and fraternities that have like a service focus. And so I know there have been different times, for example, when I was over at the Neighbors, there was a sorority for a year that the Neighbors was kind of their project and they were quite involved. So I do know there's opportunity there. And I do know that at least I just had an intern last fall and she confirmed that they still had that requirement for graduation. So.
And Corey Davis is the contact at Menominee High School. He does have a community service piece that they are required to do because on their graduation sheet, it'll show how many community service hours they've contributed. And that's kind of a big deal for some of them. So Corey Davis.
Stations. I mean, that would be an interesting, yeah, to have available so people would have know where to go.
It'd be nice if the chamber would have something like that as well, because that would be a place people would tend to go to. Okay. Did you want to lift up anything else with regards to your staff reports?
No, I think that's That's all we have for staff reports.
Okay, so regarding my email,
Yes.
okay, did you have anything there?
So, and I'm sorry, I missed Sheila's email, but, what she verbally told me is that she would just like an update or information on, how things are changing politically related to funding, if we know anything, those sorts of things. I don't have much to share, because the truth is nothing has changed for us as of the moment. We are operating as per normal. Nothing has come from the state level, to say that we should be doing anything other than normal. I will share that our nutrition program, Meals on Wheels and congregate dining, does come from what's a large portion of funding that we receive comes from the Older Americans Act funding. And Older Americans Act funding was part of that the federal funding that needed to be passed by Friday, before the government shutdown, which, a continuing resolution was passed. So the way that it looks is that we will be continued at 2024 levels for the Older Americans Act funding, through September, I believe, is when is where that continuing resolution ended up. My understanding is that the CR or continuing resolution does have more flexibilities for funding to be shifted or changed, but we don't have any indication at this point that anything would change with the Older Americans Act funding. We are led and guided by an organization in Wisconsin called GWAR, which is the Greater Wisconsin Area. What is it? I always forget. Aging Area Resources. And they're kind of our guiding light in terms of keeping us apprised. They were very transparent and said that if they became aware, they would be providing guidance as to what we would have to do or options that we would have, if the government in fact shut down and therefore our Older Americans Act funding would no longer be available. That is not unprecedented. That has happened before when there have been government shutdowns, and in the past, counties continued operations as normal, just knowing that once that the budget would be approved, we would be able to back bill, and that's what has happened in the past. I assume it would be likely that the guidance would be similar, although I don't know because things do seem perhaps a bit different than previous government shutdowns. But that is, at the moment, that has been avoided because there is a continuing resolution. So that funding will continue again, like I said, at 2024 levels. In terms of just general funding, ADRCs do receive federal funding through Medicaid programming, and that really is, we don't know what to say if there are changes with Medicaid programming, what will happen. In general, it's not like at the federal level, the federal level is not going to say, we're cutting this much from the Dunn County ADRC budget. Most likely what would happen is that there would be federal cuts that would come down to the state of Wisconsin. It would be kind of blanket overall cuts. Then at the state level, legislators would have to make decisions about how those cuts would be divvied out amongst programs. And then that would come down to the county level again to decide, okay, well, we're getting cut this much in this program. Are we going to support that? So there's a long path is what I'm saying forward. And at this point, nothing has been cut. We are operating as per usual. And I think certainly there's a lot of communication and a lot of opportunities for folks to advocate for what they want to see. If they want to see cuts, if they don't want to see cuts, there's opportunities to communicate with your legislators at the state and federal level, to communicate what your beliefs are. I think there's a lot of action alerts all the time that are out there for different agencies and different advocacy type groups, but that's kind of what we know. And we're just watching, waiting, learning as we go. We will be led by agencies at the state level and then ultimately by the county board here in terms of decisions if those need to be made.
Strongly encourage contacting your legislators.
I was just going to mention that not only in the county level, but the city level, they were cut a significant amount. So that trickled down all of those
Right.
avenues that you talked about.
Right. And so, I mean, I think that the biggest thing that, we've been probably advised by our folks that advise us at the state level is be aware, be cognizant that there could be changes, but please don't incite panic, because at this point there are no changes, and to be honest, we don't know that there will be. And when there will be decisions that have to be made at kind of all levels of government about how those things will be handled and carried out and what it will mean for programs. So.
Very well said. Anyone else? Okay, moving on. Consideration of actions to be taken by the advisory committee. There are none. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Looks like Suzanne already jumped off, so I'm going to end the recording of the meeting at this time.